Beneath a black current of cold Atlantic water, where sunlight becomes imagination and time folds upon itself, lies a sleeping city of iron and whispers. The RMS Titanic, once a gleaming altar to human confidence and industrial might, rests with its bones spread like a fallen cathedral on the ocean floor. In the hourless dark, it is neither warship nor museum, but a kind of reliquary, a place where the past collects itself into shapes that refuse to be tidy. The story told above the waves is one of statistics and spectacle, a ship of unspeakable luxury, a maiden voyage, a collision with an iceberg, panic and then silence. But under the surface, where the hull is picked at by time and the sea rearranges memory, there is an anatomy of small things that speaks in a quieter, more insistent voice. A leather shoe, a child's doll with one glass eye clouded by salt, a brass knob still warm with the last human touch. These relics, tumbled into silt and shadow, refuse to be only evidence. They are fragments of lives that continue to circulate in the wreck's slow economy. If you were to stand at the rail and listen as the sea breathes, you could imagine the ship speaking. It would not shout the names of captains or contractors. It would reveal the architecture of its own failure. The bow, sheared and contorted, tells a story of metal that tried to do what flesh could not, bend without breaking. The stern, folded like paper and bleeding steam, holds the last violent contract between heat and cold. In the corridors, wallpaper curls like the edges of burnt letters, and chandeliers hang at impossible angles, suspended in a manner the living can only mistake for ornament. Such scenes are cinematic only up to a point. The sea edits, erases and reframes, and in that editorial process, an uncanny choreography emerges. The ocean develops habits, recurring patterns of decay, so that certain artifacts always find their places. Suitcases emptied by time slide together into impromptu altars. Buttons, once markers of class and station, glitter like constellations on the silt. In the wreck's pockets and crevices, the objects that remain have rearranged themselves into a map of private histories, and the map resists tidy reading. There is something stubborn about the way the Titanic resists closure. Each expedition that descends with cameras and lights thinks it will translate the sight into an image, reduce it to frames and captions, and carry truth back to land. But the deeper you go, the more the wreck refuses to be fully known. Cameras capture surfaces, but they do not read the sound of metal cooling in seawater or the chemistry of rust that grows like a second skin. They cannot hear the long, slow conversations between iron and the microorganisms that colonize it. The wreck's voice, when it exists, is not photographic. It is tactile and temporal. Researchers bring instruments in whose numbers promise objectivity: sonar topographies, chemical analyses, data logs. Yet those instruments find themselves subject to a different kind of awe. The sonar shows the ship split at a precise angle and then presents a field of debris spreading like a scatter of handwriting across the ocean floor. Chemical readings register oxidation and bacterial activity, and then the scientists discover that there are organisms, rusticles, that do the work of what in other contexts would be called reclamation. These living formations eat metal and build new shapes, converting human construction into biological architecture. It is a slow, inexorable translation from machine into reef. The legal and ethical questions tied to the site change tone dramatically when considered in this perspective. Is the wreck a gravesite to be sacrosanct? Is it a scientific resource to be dissected? Is it a time capsule, a cautionary object, or a stage upon which the modern world rehearses its myths about hubris and technology? Each answer insists that we are projecting ourselves onto the ship. Our moral frameworks become lenses that cast shadows as much as they reveal light. The families of the lost, in their grief and insistence, ask for reverence. Museums and filmmakers ask for access. The ocean, indifferent to tribunals and treaties, performs its own adjudication in rust and silt. But there are more intimate, stranger hauntings. Divers and submersibles report phenomena that sound less like empirical observations and more like encounters with a preserved atmosphere. Lights that flicker without electrical source, a sudden sense of vertigo at a particular threshold in the wreck, where currents conspire to make the body forget its bearings. Some explorers speak of an ineffable compression of time, as if the ship folded moments into itself and made the present dense with other people's breath and gestures. These are not supernatural claims in the conventional sense. They are testimonies to the wreck's power to reorder perception, to make the living feel the weight of what was lost. When the Titanic sank, the world attempted to straighten the narrative into a single line. Technology failed. Nature punished. Error was found. Yet inside the wreckage there are traces that complicate that line. There were acts of courage and cowardice, of improvisation and cold calculation. There were doors closed and doors opened, life belts passed, like fragile promises and pianos that still seem to know the memory of music. The wreck resists being read as a single moral. Instead, it offers multiplicity, a chorus of small human stories that refuse to be subsumed under tidy meaning. One compelling, unsettling quality of the site is its simultaneity. The wreck is a place where yesterday and a million yesterdays press into one another. The iron remembers the first hands that hammered it into plates. It remembers laughter in dining rooms, whispered promises on promenades, the clink of glasses. It remembers the mechanical geography of boilers and shafts, the choreography of a well-drilled crew that could not entirely survive chaos. At the same time, the wreck is a place where the ocean writes over those memories, where algae and rusticles and currents compose new texts. The wreck is therefore both palimpsest and genesis. This conversation also refracts into our present moment. The Titanic has become a mirror, whose shape is decided by the beholder. In some retellings, it functions as a warning about arrogance, an eternal fable about the seductions of modernity. In others, it is a shrine to an earlier elegance and a lost way of knowing how to travel. It has been flattened by spectacle and elevated by scholarship. But for those who descend into its dim rooms, it offers a different proposition, that the past is not a static showcase to be visited and then left intact. The past is an active force that continues to operate on the objects and ideas we carry with us.